Slapsky!
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It is me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and I'm excited this week to be back talking about more Action Force this week. I hope you've enjoyed the last couple of weeks where we read a prose adventure of the G.I. Joe team, or rather the Action Force team, the British Joes. That was pretty fun, and that sparked my collector bug. So I have, in the weeks since we started this, garnered even more Action Force annuals. So while I work on completing that collection, which they're very doable, there's a lot of them out there, to be honest. So if they at all interested you guys, I really recommend getting it. I'm going to spend the next few weeks, I think, just digging into pieces of these Battle Action Force annuals. They're really cool. They're really neat. They're really... They're ephemera. They're like alt universe looks at G.I. Joe. And again, I know a lot of you are super familiar with it, so I apologize if this sounds redundant or noob or anything, but there's a lot of us out there that have really never touched the Action Force stuff. So for me, it's fresh. The best I can describe it is when I first started reading comic books. Like I'm talking like first 10 years, maybe 15 years, maybe till I was in like my mid 20s of collecting books, where there was so much out there to collect when I would get into a new line. So like you start with, I started with G.I. Joe. That was exciting, learning all about that universe. And then my next big move was to X-Men. And that was a wild, foray into this whole universe and backstory and things that I never knew anything about, and had so much learning to do and so much back issue reading and discovering and seeing, oh my God, this person did that and that. Who is this person and what's their story? Like that kind of discovery. And then you move into stuff like Captain America and Thor. Superman as a character is always familiar with, but my first intro to like more modern actual continuity stories was the Byrne stuff. So I read that and I'm like, wow, I can get in on the ground floor of this. And so I picked up all those Byrne and Post issues to get me caught up in like the maybe 2 years or 3 years before they killed Superman. I guess it would have been 2 years before they ended up killing him. And, that was a whole big adventure, right? So there's that collector. It's more than a collector, though. It's that reader yearning that I had when I was younger, that I don't think I lost because I'm older. I think you lose it when you read everything. And obviously there's a million novels and books and, adventures and all that stuff that I haven't discovered. I think that's one of the reasons why I love to continue to read and collect and stuff like that. Because there is just so many, that spark of this bigger world that you're getting into is always fascinating to me. I had it with Lord of the Rings when they first put those movies out. I had never read didn't have anything about Lord of the Rings when I was younger. And then, I was in my early 20s and they started putting those movies out, and that was exciting, and it tickled whatever that is in you. I think a lot of us have it. If you're listening to this podcast, whatever that is in you gets tickled when you find something new, is what I'm saying. Rambling on here to say that's how I'm feeling with this Action Force stuff. I don't know what it is. I don't know how strict their continuity was. I don't know if these were just adventures, and we're going to get to it. I'm going to talk about that reference book again in a hot second. But in the process of discovering this, it's really fun for me because it's these, again, characters I know and love, but done in a different way. Fresh adventures I never knew and unrelated to the old adventures. So I don't have to worry about any weird continuity glitches. I can just enjoy them for the characters that they are and build this new continuity. I'm loving it. So I hope you guys are enjoying it too. One of the things that is interesting in these Action Force annuals, and that's probably what I'm just going to focus on for the next few weeks, months, or whatever, as we go through these, is some of them, the older ones, which today we're talking about, Battle Action Force Annual 1986. This is probably the one that you guys know most. It's the yellow book with Cobra Commander, Destro, Baroness, Duke, and Scarlet on the cover. It's really recognizable. That's the most famous one that I've ever seen, even before I started collecting them. But what's neat in there is it's not just GI Joe stories. There are a lot of GI Joe stories in here, and they're not prose; they're comic stories. So we're gonna talk some illustrateds today, and there's ads for GI Joe stuff. It's pretty neat. But then there's just regular old war stories, like old school war comics, which are awesome and fun. I don't know if we're going to cover those today. We're going to actually really just cover a quick story, get in and get out this week. So, but it's cool. So it's fun. So I hope you guys enjoy it too. I hope you go along with me on this, because it's really is a part of GI Joe that I'm not familiar with. Before we get in all that, if you're a new listener, this is the podcast where we talk about GI Joe. I am Joe Slevsky, and we've covered all the cartoons, all the old school cartoons. We've covered all the issues of Real American Hero, the Marvel series. I've covered Extreme. And now we're kind of working through some ephemera. And if this is something you want to participate in, please reach out to me at Joe on Joe Pod on all the socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can give me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. You can reach out to me on Facebook via a message that I got an awesome one this week that really sparked a lot of it sparked a little bit of desire to keep doing this ephemera stuff for a little bit. And that's from listener Michael Nee. So Michael, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you reaching out, man. Reached out, and he had a question about another ephemera thing. I'll save that for another time. And I think that's a great suggestion. So Michael, if you hear this and you haven't seen my reply yet, absolutely, we're going to get to that. And I think I'll do ephemera for a little while. Also heard from listener Paul Sidaway. Paul, you're the best. Paul found for us, if you listened last 2 weeks, there was a terrible song. I'll say it was terrible because, again, in the context of the story, remember, it was driving Flint crazy, that he was singing. Now, I probably sang it even worse than the song actually is, but it's called Make Yourself a Happiness Pie. And we're going to play a little bit of it. Just pick it up over the mic here, so the sound will be a little weird, but here you go.
Take a cup and a half of sunbeams, pour them into a deep blue sky, add a couple of drops of love dreams, and make yourself a happiness pie. Make a spoonful of pleasant weather.
I gotta say, if I heard that in my VR nightmare, just like Flint, I probably would go crazy too and realize that something is broken in the world. So that's thanks to Paul. Paul found that on YouTube. It looks like it's from like between 1930 and 1934, something like that. That version was by the Ray Noble Orchestra featuring Al Bowley. So yeah, you could find that on YouTube. And then the other thing I want to really bring up is, again, mention that Total Action Force, the Battle Years, it was a Kickstarter. Now they sell the soft cover on its own. And it is by Brian Hickey. He's also done a second run, which is called Total Action Force, just Volume 2. And I guess the Volume 2 focuses more on where the G.I. Joe team really integrated into it. That's what I can see from the galleys that they posted on their website, totaltoybooks.com. And that is what looks to be a very cool dig into all this stuff. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, go check that out. I haven't gotten those books yet. Like I said last week, I'm just digging into this. I have a feeling I'm going to pull the trigger on those in short term. But they really look neat, and they're the Joes we know, but they got different names. They got, different backstories, things like that. And they all speak with an accent. So go check that out. TotalToyBooks.com. You'll see Brian Hickey's work on this. It's a whole subject. And I'm sure other people have done it too, but Brian Hickey seems to be doing it right now, and he seems to be doing it the best. He's also got a whole book, or it's on pre-order rather, of the history of Palatoy. And that's actually by Bob Bretchen. That's also on the TotalToyBooks.com. And Palatoy is it's the Hasbro of England that produced these Action Force toys. So if you're interested in any of this, check it out. I'm learning too. So the thing is, by no way am I going to be an expert in any of this. In fact, and maybe he covers it in his books. I don't know who the creators are on these books, these stories. They do not, that I could see in this book, credit any creators. So I can't tell you that it was written by this guy, written by that guy. I've got a couple guesses to a few things later in this book. There's a few art styles that really look familiar to me. But as far as really knowing who did this story today, I have absolutely no idea. I've looked on Google. I don't see anywhere where they're crediting it. I did, listeners, if you don't have this book and you don't want to buy it on eBay or what have you, which is totally understandable, histank.com has in their forums, it's actually a post from like 2011, so it's a while ago, but if you Google it, like Action Force and His Tank annual 1986, it'll show up in the first page of Google results. Someone scanned these first like the G.I. Joe sections of this book, so you could follow along and see the story yourself that we're going to cover today, which is called Cobra Gold. So there's lots of resources to get this stuff, and so I appreciate Brian Hickey doing his part in putting together that compendium, etc., on the subject. And I hope you guys are enjoying it, because we're all going to learn a little bit, and we're going to have fun reading a G.I. Joe adventure that we never knew before. The other thing we have fun listening to people talk about adventures that we've never known before is our great sponsor, the Movies in a Meal podcast, who every week talk about movies that you and I have never seen before. In the beginning of time, the smallest organism gained sentience and thought to itself, I really need a good meal. Then, a bunch of other stuff happened, and finally the Lumiere brothers started showing movies in France. This was all the inspiration that fellow broadcasters Brad, Keith, and Ben needed to combine these two primal needs into the Movies in a Meal podcast. The Movies in a Meal is one of the most casual and relaxing film talk podcasts you could ever listen to. These three friends enjoy a good meal together while talking all about the movies. And not just reviews. They do favorite lists, comparison discussions, genre talks, anything and everything that you can think of. They've even broken their solemn promise inherent in the name and branched out into TV talk. So I love the variety of films they bring to the table. They cover new releases, classics, cult films, often in one episode. It's really a delight to listen to, and it has something for every movie fan out there to enjoy. So if you're looking to grow your podcast library, if you eat meals, and if you've ever seen a movie, then you should give Ben, Keith, and Brad a listen and subscribe to the Movies in a Meal podcast. They've been a great sponsor to this show. I love the Movies in a Meal podcast, and I'd like all of you to love them too. So give them a listen when you're online, giving us a rate and a review and all that stuff. Checking out our Patreon page, patreon.com/JoeandJoePod. And certainly subscribe to the Movies in a Meal podcast. They're awesome, and they're helping us out, and you can too. I saw X this week. So my wife and I, Toilet Teal, the wonderful Cobra cleaning lady, we've started taking to, I guess, is it adverbing things? So in other words, like we saw The Nun and we got nunned. So I got sawed this week, and we got equalized a couple of weeks ago. I don't know what, I haven't checked this week what Movies in a Meal are covering this week, but maybe you've been swifted. Maybe they covered the big Taylor Swift movie. But I got sawed over the weekend, and it was exciting. Yeah, speaking of Toilet Teal, just going to share something with you kids and listeners out there. I actually talked about this on our friends of What's on Joe Mind's podcast, but I never brought it here because I don't get into a lot of personal stuff here. Celebrate Toilet Teal this week. She is in the final week of her treatment for a little bit of the breast cancer. And she's a trooper, and she's doing great. And for those of you that are friends with Facebook and whatever that heard that What's in Joe Mind, you guys send some love. I appreciate you so much. She's doing really good. The doctors at Cedars, I know there's a lot of G.I. Joe fans there listening to this. They are awesome. I'm talking about Cedars Sinai out here in Los Angeles. They're fantastic. So that's something we've been doing. We've been dealing with for like the last few months. So if I've been a little distracted, and might be a little distracted for a little while more, that would be why. But we've been dealing with it all summer, and we're ramping up now. And she's wonderful, and she's doing great. So my message to you listeners would be, male or female, get checked early and checked often. Found it small. and they're taking care of it. And the more you get checked and the more you see your doctor, don't be afraid, men, guys, dudes out there, don't be afraid to get checked. You know what I'm talking about. And just, catch it early, and you'll be better than if you wait and get it caught late. And ladies, you know the drill. It's been drilled into you forever too. And I hope everyone is taking care of themselves. We know Toiletile is here too. So Old Style and Toiletile making it happen. Thank you all so much for reaching out when you did, and for listening and caring. So with that, we're going to dig into Cobra Gold. Now, it's a short story, which is fun. It's a vibrant story, also fun. This is from it's published in 1985, but it's the Battle Action Force Annual 1986. It's like a 7-page story. They start printing on the interior of the hardcover, which is cool. Like, they don't waste any pages. A lot of I think almost all hardcover books, you open it, there's like a blank page in the front. I'm sure there's a name for that. Like, I think it might be the nameplate page. If you're getting an autograph, it's a lot of times it's where people sign things. Like, they don't waste time with this. Literally, the interior of the front of the content page, rather, actually the table of contents, shares story space with Cobra Gold. It's great. They don't waste time, and it's very toy centric with a real vibe of the cartoon, which is cool too. So like they look super, the animation, the drawings rather, look really honest. They look like the toys. It's a word. Faithful. That's the word I'm trying to think of. They look super faithful to the toys, but the whole thing plays like the cartoon. Even this opening panel we get here, it's literally if it's not exactly the Cobra Temple from the cartoon, it's pretty close to the Cobra Temple. I didn't do a cross reference, but it looks just like it. Hidden deep in the mountains was Cobra headquarters, the nerve center spelled CENTRE. We are British now, of course, of the global terrorist organization dedicated to taking over the world. And then they have Cobra Commander speaking with the hiss, which is from the cartoon. He didn't speak like that in any of the word balloons in the comic books. So it's what is it, Destro? I'm Buggy, which is a very British way of saying like Bugsy. Oh, busy. Oh wait, no, that's a very Joe's blind way of reading the word busy. So he says busy with 3 S's. So I'm busy, kind of a thing. And interior, we get Cobra Commander walking into an oddly, I love the drawing of it. So I'm not knocking the drawing. It's great, but it's a really oddly shaped throne room. In order to fit everything they needed to in this, the architecture of this room doesn't make any sense. But it's a Destro sitting on a chair, lounging with our boy Scrap Iron. We have never really got a lot of Scrap Iron love, so to see him here was really neat. And in the background, there's one of the red Cobra snakes, the armor that came out in the early couple of years of the toy line, the Cobra snake armor. So there's a red version of that in the background. And we, though they hate each other, Cobra Commander and Destro were forced to work together. And Destro says, "Are you too busy to watch a demonstration of my laser rifle?" And Cobra Commander says, "Never to. I'm not going to keep doing the busy." But every time he says an S, imagine that there's 3 S's there. He's never too busy to say anything that might destroy the action force. Begin the demonstration. Scrap Iron. But when he does, the laser bounces off that Cobra snake armor, and it almost hits them, who are Cobra and Destro, who are sitting by the throne, and it melts this snake statue to a puddle of ooze. It calls Destro incompetent. And what's interesting though is it bounced off the armor, so it shows that armor is really good, and it completely liquefied the snake statue. So I don't know how that's considered a failure. 1, you got really good snake armor, and 2, you could use that to liquefy a lot of stuff. Like you could use that. Anyway, Cobra Commander considers it's a failure, and this drives us to Destro to accuse him. Like, the reason this didn't work is because new weapons cost money, and in case you haven't checked your vaults lately, they're empty. Cobra's bankrupt. And so Cobra Commander reveals that he's got a plan to fill the vaults again. So go to the next page. I don't have my, I didn't set up, I forgot that I was doing a illustrated, so I did not set up my sound effects. So just imagine, yo, Joe, kind of a thing. So the next day we go, and it's Action Force. I'm going to say G.I. Joe, but it's technically Action Force. And they're guarding a train, and it's the opening of the new high-speed Transalpine, no R Alpine, just Transalpine railway to mark the occasion. The largest shipment of gold bullion ever sent by train is being loaded and guarded by Action Force. It's Duke and Gung Ho and Stalker. So to celebrate the opening of this new train, they're going to load it with all this gold bullion, like to flaunt it, I guess. That's pretty cool. And Gung Ho, and they're drawn, the characters on this, and the page earlier too, they're drawn, they're nice. Like they're drawn like their action figures come to life. There's a thickness and a sturdiness to them, as if the artist, and again, I don't know who it is, really studied the figures and was drawing it like those figures came to life. I really like that. And you could see some of the contrast when you look at, there's not a lot of supporting characters, to be fair, in this, but there's a few. And they look more like you would draw in a cartoon or a comic, versus the Joes and the few Cobras that are in this that really come off looking like posed action figures, posed well. I'm not saying they're stiff, but like there's a heft to them. It's just a little different, and I do like that. They don't like, it's not the traditional, certainly not traditional U.S. style at the time. There's a hint of animation to it. There's a hint of openness to the faces. Like a little, like Gung Ho. There's a couple looks in here from Gung Ho that's got a little Alex Toth to it. It's like not overly rendered, but then there's hints of like hints of hatching in all the right places. You know what I mean? Like, for example, Duke's hair is the best example of this. And again, if you go to that His Tank PDF, you'll see what I'm talking about. Duke, they give Duke just a big bowl of blonde hair, right? Just a big bowl of yellow. And the only marks on it to denote that it's hair is they do a little hatching near the cuff of it and near the forehead of it. Otherwise, it's just a big bowl of yellow. And in that little bit of I guess simplicity would be the right way to put it, really gives it a toy pop. It really makes it look like that's the toy or a cartoon version of it, instead of giving him like like wavy hair like you would draw Superman. I dig it. I really do. I kind of like this. So we get Duke and Gung Ho. They're talking about guarding this big thing of gold. And Duke says, according to a captured Cobra officer, the Cobra organization, spelled with an S, is running out of cash, Gung Ho. A pile of this big might just tempt Cobra Commander into stealing it. And if he tries, we'll be waiting. So Gung Ho, and it's like 1880s. Gung Ho and Duke are literally hiding in a train car full of gold, waiting for Cobra to show up and steal it. Stalker locks them in there with the loot. And above them is flying Scarlet, and they call it a Sky Raider on this panel, which got me thinking, ooh, is that what they called the Sky Striker in Action Force, like in England? And then on the next page, he calls it Sky Striker. So that might have just been an error on their part, or the other way around. Maybe they do call it Sky Raider, and then the error is on the next page. Again, I'm not the expert. That's why I got to go to Brian Hickey and get his book, Battle Action Force. But yeah, so Scarlet's flying a Sky Striker up top, and this is neat. They color her whole outfit is black and white instead of what is she, like orange and, was it orange and green? What was Scarlet like? You know what I mean? Like Scarlet's, well, she's on the cover. On the cover, she's like orange and like blue. That yellowy orange jumpsuit with like a blue underbody. But in the story itself, she's got white gloves. She's got the white jumpsuit, and then her I guess bodysuit is pure black. That's a cool look, and I'd be down with that if, like, let's say, like Super 7 put out a version of Scarlet that looked like that. That'd be pretty neat. I think it pops. But she's flying overhead, and the train is about to enter a giant tunnel. It's the new Alpine tunnel. Well, that's what they're celebrating. So she's going to lose sight of them. So now we go to the next page. As the tunnel, and as the train enters the tunnel, we see that inside there's an old lady, and she looks like an old lady that would have been on the Batman '66 show. Been watching a lot of that lately too. And the carman guy says like, "Hey, ma'am, you can't go in there." And sure enough, it's the Baroness. She rips off the disguise. Using disguises, that's straight out of G.I. Joe #1, straight out of the cartoon. I love it. They didn't use it enough in later years in the comic series, but it's awesome. Baroness strips it off, and she's the toy Baroness. She's got like the full toy outfit on, like full body black with the ribbing and everything. And she jumps to the section of the train where the gold, and of course the gold is not in the middle of the train. Of course, it's the final car on the train. So she just releases it, and the gold gets left inside the tunnel as the rest of the train escapes. So in the bullion coach, Gung Ho realizes that they're slowing down. This is where Duke calls the, quote, Sky Striker escort, and the tunnel's blocking the radio. But Scarlet sees as the train leaves, the bullion coach is gone. So Scarlet calls all the Action Force teams, converge on the Alpine Tunnel. We've got trouble. And inside, Baroness is looking for a secret switch that they've apparently set up for this. Think of, first thing I thought of was that switch in Superman the movie, where Lex hid in the subways, and once before the train could come, the door would open or close. And he killed poor Armus. Anyway, she finds a switch, the wall opens up, and inside are a bunch of Cobras. Very much like Die Hard 3, let's be real. And it's Major Blood now. I think that's Major Blood, yeah. Yeah, Major Blood driving a big Cobra-branded bulldozer, forklift. And he picks up that bullion cart, pulls it off their tracks, and then they closed the fake door again. So it's like a whole fake wall thing. So once that door closes on the other side, you would never know that they were behind that wall. And then the Cobra soldiers blast open the side, but as soon as they do, Duke yells, "You should always check the contents before opening the box." And they literally mow down these soldiers, like Duke and Gung Ho, just murdering people. One of the things I was reading about Action Forces, one of the commenters on the His Think forum said that, yeah, Action Force was totally brutal. They had a much higher body count than anything J. Joe ever did. And here we go. At least 3 Cobra Troopers just murdered by Gung Ho and Duke right there. Then there's Major Blood in an asp. Asps are very cool. And he's got the asp trained on the cart. Meanwhile, in the tunnel, we've got Stalker, Scarlet in her white outfit, this is the best look you get so far of it. It looks pretty good. And now we've been joined by Mutt and Junkyard. But we're hoping that Junkyard can sniff something out. On the next page, Junkyard certainly does that. Attaboy, Junkyard, you show these people what you can do. Because remember, this is 86, so it came out 85. So Mutt and Junkyard were brand new at the time. So I like that. Like they're without saying it, it's saying that they're new to the team. And here we come, a Whirlwind, the G.I. Joe Whirlwind, the twin gun. Whirlwind shows up. I don't ever remembering this being used in the Real American Hero series. Like, for real, the G.I. Joe Whirlwind makes an appearance. And they're going to use it to blow a hole in that fake wall thing. Now, inside the fake wall, and Major Blood looks just like the action figure. He looks really good. The gold is all loaded up on trucks. And Baroness says, Blood's going to kill those two, kill Gung Ho and Duke. Baroness says, "Why should you have the pleasure, Blood? I'll do the killing." And before they can get over that argument, that's when the Whirlwind rips open the wall. And, Stalker gives a, "Sorry, did we interrupt anything?" And they chase him off. You get another look at Scarlet in her white outfit. They throw Duke a gun, because you got to have a gun. And here's the Cobra Claws just hanging out there looking 100% toyetic, 100% toy accurate. They jump on a couple Cobra Claws. Blood says, "Good thing we kept these claws for an emergency escape." and they fly off in the sky. And Gungo says, "They got away, Duke. Never mind them. Now look." And the other Cobras were still driving away in those trucks. Again, very diehard with a vengeance here. So they're driving with these trucks full of gold down the street, and they jump out in the whirlwind. And Duke's, gets his aim, and he shoots, and he knocks the trucks off the road. Probably, well, no, they're not all dead. They walk them off in the next panel. So Duke and company rush down, and they've got the gold back. These Cobra troopers can look forward to prison. There's gold bars laying all over the road. And this scene was relayed back to Cobra headquarters by satellite. Cobra Commander, and it's Cobra Commander in his face mask, not his hood. All that beautiful gold lost to me. So much for filling the vaults again. Seeing that I'll never have enough money to develop a new laser rifle, there's only one thing left to do with it. And he throws it in a trash can. And Cobra Commander is literally holding his head in depression, saying, "How I despise the Action Force." And Destro looks so toyetic here. It's great. And that's it. That's the story, Cobra Gold. Like, it's very kid friendly. It's very, I would love this. If I were, 10 and reading this would be an awesome, awesome adventure. It's full color, and the colors really pop. They look painted. They look a lot like the old, like the style of the old He-Man comic books, the painted style that they would put out for those He-Man books. It's very much got that vibe to it. So that's it. That's a lot of fun. The next story is Johnny Red, and this is not a G.I. Joe story. It's like a fighter race thing, but this is one I want to talk about. I don't know who the artist is on this, but it looks to me like it's got some Carlos Ezguerra vibes. It really does. Or maybe that one I'm thinking of his later story. There's another story in here that's got real Cam Kennedy vibes too. So if you like that art style, I'm not saying they're the artists on it, because I looked them up, specifically those two on Grand Comic Book Database. But you know what I didn't do? I didn't look up by series name Action Force. So let me do that. Hold on. Battle Action Force. Yeah, no, you know what? I'm sorry. I did look this up, and they didn't really have creators on it. Details by issue. Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. This was actually the first one I found. It's off the Grand Comics database, and the 1986 one. They don't really say. They don't really have a lot of information on of who the creators were. Yeah, like there's a lot of question marks on this, and this is the Grand Comic Database, which is usually pretty good. Absolute question marks for all the things in Cobra Gold we just read. Johnny Red question marks. The next one question marks all the way down the line. No one's really filled in who was working on this stuff. You get to a Snake Hunt, which we are gonna do. It's a Snake Eyes story later on. John Cooper is the penciler. That's the only one that's really on here. It's literally, hold on, that's literally the only guy on here that they've ever identified. So I'm just gonna give you a vibe on this Johnny Red. It's got a very Carlos Ezguerra look, which I like a lot. These are the British creators at the time that were doing 2000 AD, right? They were doing Judge Dredd at the time. So even if it's not the exact same guys, that's what was being done in that style at the time. It's kind of like in the States in the 70s, everyone was doing Neil Adams, because Neil Adams was doing Kirby from the 60s. And so a lot of the books started looking very Neil Adams and so on. You know what I mean? Like there's waves of style. And like today there's a very cartoony anime-ish, but really driven by the fact that it's all being done digital. Comics, there's a style these days that's very open, very flat, animated look. For a lot of comics, like that's a modern style. That's what I mean by like a national style or a national trend style. And of course, in the 90s was the Image style, right? You guys know exactly what I'm talking about there. You guys know what the Image style is. If you say that, you get that picture. So that's what I mean by the looks of these being a very like 2000 AD Judge Dredd, Cam Kennedy, Carlos Ezquerra look, which is cool. So yeah, so that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed Cobra Gold. I think next week we're going to do the story called Death Beam, which is later on in this annual, and it's cool. It's got a real Kurt Swan vibe, and it's black and white, and it's Duke, and it's Scarlet, and is that Tripwire? Yeah, Tripwire's in the mix, which, by the way, my Hasbro Tripwire is about to arrive. I think that's very cool. So yeah, so that's a whole lot of fun. I'm really digging this. I hope you guys are digging Action Force too. Google this stuff, find this stuff. It's really neat. Maybe I don't even. Honestly, I wouldn't even know who would have the publishing rights to it. So that would be a total pipe dream to wish. But that'd be cool if all this stuff was collected in like a big, compendium. Even if it was just the G.I. Joe stuff, where it'd be easy for people to get. Because that really awesome book is more of a modern retrospective on the series. It's not like a reprint of these stories. So this is neat. Check it out. I appreciate all of you. Now you Joe, and Joeing half the battle.